Mason, while renovating his century-old family home, stumbled upon an old, tattered cloth hidden deep within the chimney. Its intricate patterns and unusual texture piqued his curiosity, compelling him to seek an expert's opinion on this unexpected find. But when the expert examines what's wrapped inside the cloth, his stunned expression and hushed words, "This can't be true," send shivers down Mason's spine. But before we start our story, smash the like button, make sure to subscribe and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. Mason had bought the home after a lengthy search and many open houses. He wanted a house with character, and boy, did this house have it. But what made the home so great also came with complications. The house needed a lot of work. After planning the renovation and getting everything ready, it was time to rip the house apart. It was a big job. But Mason was lucky enough to get the help of his friends and family. Together, they ripped out the old carpets, cleaned up left-behind trash, and even removed some of the walls. The former owner was a hoarder, so the house was filled with random things, trash, and furniture. It also made the place incredibly dirty, so they wore hazmat suits for protection. As Mason was busy demolishing the fire mantle, he couldn't help but look inside the chimney. The house was so full of stuff that he just figured the former owner could have stuffed some things in there too. As he crouched down and looked inside, he saw a strange object covered in black char. He didn't think much of it at first. That was until he took it out of the chimney. The object was actually a piece of cloth wrapped around something. Mason cleaned the char off as well as he could, and almost immediately knew he had found something extraordinary. The cloth wasn't like any sort of material he had seen before, and looked very old. It also had a beautiful pattern all over it, which piqued his curiosity even more. This was something Mason had to learn more about, so he quickly searched online if there was an antique expert nearby. To his surprise, there was an antique expert only a 30-minute drive away. There was no time to waste, so Mason's friends and family continued the clean-out and demolition, while Mason got in his truck and drove to the expert. As he was driving, his mind raced with possibilities. He didn't want to unwrap the cloth himself, as he was afraid he would damage it or whatever was inside. It could be something of value, but he didn't want to get his hopes up. They hadn't found anything else of value between the piles of trash inside the house yet, either. Finally, he arrived at the expert's shop. As Mason stood outside, he noticed how quiet it was inside. There were no customers at all, but he would soon find out why. As he opened the door, a little bell jingled. Mason was immediately hit with a musty smell, which wasn't all that strange for an antique store. However, what was strange was that no one came to help him. "Hello," Mason called out, but no one answered. He walked around the store for a while, looking at all the antiques and their different prices. Some pieces were hundreds of dollars, and some only $5. After a few minutes, there was still no sign of the expert. Mason called out again and even opened the door a few times so the bell would jingle. He placed the cloth on the counter and cautiously walked around it. It felt wrong to trespass, but what if something had happened with the store owner? "I'm going to see if someone is hurt back here," he called out, hoping to clear any misunderstanding. The last thing he wanted was to get in trouble. The room was filled with taxidermy animals, all staring straight into Mason's soul. He quickly closed the door again, his heart racing in his chest. Suddenly, he heard the familiar jingle of the front door opening, so he hastily walked back to the front of the store. "Oh, hello," a man wearing a strange hat said as he saw Mason. He looked genuinely surprised to see someone inside the store. "Oh, hello," the man said, tipping his quirky hat. Mason could barely hide his surprise. The visitor introduced himself as Hans Therensen, an antique expert known for his peculiar taste in hats and even more peculiar expertise. Hans's eyes sparkled with curiosity, a stark contrast to the dim lighting of the shop. Their unexpected encounter set the stage for an adventure neither anticipated. Hans glanced around, his eyes adjusting to the shop's ambiance. Not many step into this realm of the past anymore, he mused, explaining his shift to an online marketplace. Shop, with its whispers of bygone eras, seemed untouched by time, each artifact a silent testament to histories untold. It was a museum of sorts, albeit one that seldom welcomed visitors. Hans followed Mason through the labyrinth of shelves, filled with forgotten treasures, until they reached a dimly lit corner where time had left its mark. Mason carefully lifted an object wrapped in cloth. Hans, his curiosity piqued, leaned in. "What do we have here?" he asked, sensing that this discovery would set them on an unexpected journey. Hans inspected the fabric under a magnifying glass, revealing intricate, hidden symbols. Mason watched intently, his mind racing with questions. "What era is this from? What was it used for?" Mason asked. Hans, lost in thought, didn't answer immediately, deepening the mystery. The cloth seemed to whisper ancient secrets. Its symbols, its very fibers, carried stories long buried. Hans began unwrapping it, his hands steady but deliberate. Layer by layer, the mystery beneath started to take shape. With every layer removed, Hans's expression shifted. Wonder, confusion, even disbelief. Mason observed silently, sensing the gravity of the moment. Then, a sound, faint but undeniable, cut through the silence. Both men froze. It was a noise that didn't belong, an echo from the past. This can't be real," Hans murmured. His words hung in the air, filled with a mix of fear and awe. Mason, equally stunned, realized that what lay before them was beyond anything they had expected. Mason urged Hans forward. "Go on. We need to know." Their search for the truth had only just begun. Hans led Mason into a high-tech laboratory, a stark contrast to the dusty shelves of before. Mason looked around, grasping the significance of their find. The shift from the old shop to the advanced lab wasn't just physical. It marked the weight of their discovery. Surrounded by modern technology, the fabric seemed like a doorway to history itself. Mason donned gloves and safety glasses, understanding the magnitude of what they were about to uncover. This was no ordinary relic. It was a key to the past. Hans followed Mason through a labyrinth of shelves filled with forgotten relics. They stopped at a dimly lit corner, where Mason carefully unwrapped a cloth-covered object. Hans leaned in, intrigued. "What do we have here?" His voice carried the weight of anticipation, sensing that this discovery would take them on an unexpected journey. Hans examined the fabric under a magnifying glass, revealing hidden symbols. Mason, wide-eyed, whispered, "What does it mean?" The cloth seemed to breathe with history, whispering secrets of a lost time. Layer by layer, Hans unwrapped it, revealing hints of what lay beneath. Then, a sound, soft yet distinct, broke the silence. Both men froze, the weight of the moment pressing upon them. This can't be real," Hans murmured. Mason, equally stunned, felt the enormity of their find settle in. Hans led Mason into a high-tech laboratory, a stark contrast to the dusty shop. The transition was more than physical. It symbolized the significance of their discovery. Mason donned gloves and goggles. The attire wasn't just protective. It marked a shift into the realm of history, preparing them for a revelation centuries in the making. The lab's bright lights cut through the room, their intensity mirroring the search for truth. The artifact, partially revealed, exuded a presence that made time itself seem suspended. As Hans lifted the cloth, the air crackled with energy. Mason leaned in, heart pounding. What they were about to uncover had the power to rewrite history. The final unveiling revealed an astonishing sight. A collection of ancient coins, each a silent witness to a pivotal era. "These aren't just any coins," Hans whispered. "They belong to an age that changed the world." Mason, awestruck, traced the markings, realizing each coin told a unique story. One coin, in particular, caught Mason's attention. Hans's voice dropped to a reverent tone. "This one is a direct link to a moment that shaped our history." Mason held it, feeling the weight of time in his palm, a tangible connection bridging centuries. Hans's assessment confirmed what Mason was beginning to grasp. The collection's worth was immeasurable, both historically and financially. "This piece," Hans said, holding up a single coin, "has been missing from every known set. It completes the puzzle." Mason exhaled, understanding that their find wasn't just rare, it was legendary. As Hans explained the rarity and significance of the coins, Mason felt the weight of their find. Each coin was a piece of history, entrusted to their care. The realization struck him. This was more than a valuable collection. It was a treasure of immeasurable worth. Hans's estimations stunned Mason. "These could be worth more than my house," he muttered, barely grasping the implications. The financial and historical impact of the find reshaped his perception of their discovery, filling him with excitement for what lay ahead. The lab buzzed with energy as they processed the enormity of their find. Surrounded by ancient coins and cutting-edge technology, they stood at the center of a momentous occasion. Amidst the thrill, a partnership formed. Recognizing the need for both historical preservation and financial wisdom, Mason and Hans agreed to work together to ensure the best outcome for the collection. They meticulously recorded each coin's history, significance, and value. It was the first step in unveiling their discovery to the world, a process that required both scholarship and strategy. To authenticate their find, they consulted numismatic experts. Each coin underwent careful validation, ensuring its historical integrity. The meticulous process underscored their commitment to preserving the collection's legacy. Meetings with historians and museum curators deepened their understanding of the collection's significance. The find was more than just financially valuable. It held the potential to reshape historical narratives. Choosing a permanent home for the collection was no easy task. Mason and Hans were determined to place the coins where they would be appreciated not just as treasures, but as historical artifacts that could educate and inspire. Ultimately, they decided on a museum. It was the best way to secure the collection's legacy, ensuring it would be studied, preserved, and admired for generations to come. With plans for an exhibit taking shape, anticipation grew. More than just a showcase of wealth, the display would tell a story of history, discovery, and the passage of time. The sale of the collection to a renowned museum marked the culmination of their journey. What had started as a chance discovery had now become a celebrated piece of history. The museum's commitment to preserving the coins was evident from the start. Using advanced conservation techniques, they ensured the artifacts would endure, their significance intact. As the exhibit neared completion, Mason and Hans worked with curators to shape the display. Their goal was to make the collection not just accessible, but a window into the past for visitors. The exhibit's opening was a moment of triumph. Attendees marveled at the coins and the incredible story behind their discovery. Mason and Hans stood together, knowing they had not just uncovered history, they had helped preserve it for the future.